I still think they have roster clog, which I thought they were going to clean up. It helped a little when they dealt Tyler O'Neill, but it's still there, and they still have pieces, and I'm still confused because I just don't think – I've said it before, they have enough starting pitching. They're talking about, we're fine, except the end of it. Even if the guys they got are great, someone's going to get hurt. Two guys are going to be hurt. And I don't think they have enough depth. We've talked about it before, which leads me to believe, in light of what Glasnow's saying the Cardinals were in, that maybe they still have a move left to make.
Or I think the Cardinals are smart enough to also kick the tires, which is why I have no problem with, look, do I think Yamamoto's coming here? Absolutely not. But why would the Cardinals not check in? Right? Think about that. Wouldn't the Cardinals be not doing their job? By the way, we knew Ohtani wasn't going to happen. But if you're the Cardinals, wouldn't you be derelict in your job if you didn't kick the tires on, back in the day, Nola, right? Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery. What's the price? Do one of these guys want to come here? I mean, if you need starting pitching, which clearly the Cardinals did, I mean, they signed 3 frickin' starting pitchers. I understand 2 guys were back-end, 1-year deals. Sonny Gray was a nice deal, but Sonny Gray was the one guy in his own bucket. Nobody else got a Sonny Gray deal except for Sonny Gray. Mm-hmm. Everything else is small, right? 1 year, 10 to 14, the Flaherty's, the Waka got 2 years. But like short deals for about 10, 12 million. Sonny Gray was his own bucket, which we all said from day one that he felt like a Cardinal because he was in that bucket, right? He was the good guy you could get without spending 150 to 200 million. But I'm sure John Mozeliak was interested in Aaron Nola, bringing Montgomery back. What's up with Blake Snell? How much does Yamamoto cost? And at the end of the day, maybe all those guys are too expensive for the Cardinals.
But Glasnow's a later thing, and I didn't hear what he said.
But he became super expensive.
Did he say they were in on him or they kicked the tires? I didn't hear exactly what he said. I got the impression that they were kind of contenders.
Yes, but here's the other thing with Glasnow.
Which means maybe not just kicking the tires.
Okay, and I'm not even trying to like break down the percentage of if the Cardinals were interested. The Cardinals should have been interested in Tyler Glasnow. They should be interested in Dylan Cease, seeing what's up. I do think the Tyler Glasnow situation changed because clearly he was not going to basically be traded. Even that trade, it said the trade is contingent on him signing an extension. And then he signed an extension for what? $25 to $30 million a year for the next 4 years. That became, it was a 1-year deal for $25 million, and it became about a 4-year deal for what? $111 million. So, look, I'm not saying the Cardinals ever had a great chance of getting him, but if the Cardinals aren't kicking the tires on all these guys, they're not doing their job. And it's fine to talk about that. Even if there's a 1% chance. I don't think there's any chance the Cardinals sign Yamamoto, but it's fine to talk about it.
I just think if they're in for real on Glasnow and realize, okay, we got to back away from the table at this point, that maybe there is a move to be made. They have the pieces. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I guess here's where I do want to then, temper expectations for Cardinals fans. I don't think just because the Cardinals checked in on Yamamoto, they should check in on all these guys. Because they checked in on Glasnow, I don't think that means they're going to make a move. I think that means they might make a move, but also be prepared.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, be prepared, Cardinals fans. If this is a rotation that you have, they're going to add a reliever. Of course, they should check in on all these guys, but I don't think that means they're going to actually do anything.
That's exactly what I said. It means that they may still have a move left in terms of adding to the rotation.
Out of exchange, Kirkwood text line. Degenerate Wombat again. Why are the expectations so low for the Cardinals in free agency? Why are there guys where they have a, quote, no chance on? Shouldn't they be all in on these types of guys? It's pathetic.
They never – I mean, they don't spend a big money on starting pitching. They don't.
Or really anyone in free agency. They've signed guys to big extensions when they're already here. Goldschmidt, you picked up Arenado. He didn't opt out. That contract was something you inherited. Obviously, when Pujols was here, you extended him. You extended Molina, Waino. Their biggest free agent deal they've ever made is it not still Wilson Contreras?
Yeah, I think so.
To my knowledge.
So, I mean, Sonny Gray's could become that, I think, with that 4th-year option. But as of actually giving out guaranteed money, we're talking about teams. The Dodgers just signed a $700 million ticket. We have teams that have given out $400 million or high threes to the likes of the Mike Trouts, Aaron Judges of the world. The Cardinals still have not given a $100 million deal to somebody that was not with them. Even Holiday had already played for him. So, again, I love it, and I think eventually they will. They've tried. They did offer Pujols the big amount. They offered David Price the big amount. They offered Jason Hayward the big amount. It's not that they're afraid to do it, and eventually they will. Eventually the Cardinals will sign a $200 million player. Maybe it's 5 years from now. But
if you're the Cardinals, though, and you're like, how much was it for Price?
I think it was 210-ish.
Okay, and it turned out bust. Big time bust. You're like, ooh, maybe that's the wrong direction to go. I mean, for a team like the Cardinals, yes, their owner's a billionaire. Yes, they have a lot of money. But a team like the Cardinals, it's not as easy to soak a big bust of a long-term free agent deal than it is for the Dodgers.
So do you want Yamamoto or not?
Here's my thing. I want him. I would like to see that. I think that would help them. But I don't know if what he has done in Japan will transfer at the same kind of success rate that he had in Japan. And you're making a forever deal with him. What if he's not? What if he's just a guy? It's risk versus reward. Now, I think the rotation needs something else. I still think it has a chance to be solid enough, where, as Charlie has pointed out, where if you have a need, you can go ahead and fix it later. I think there's a shot that these guys will put the Cardinals. I'm not saying they'll be at 5. I think they're going to be better than 500. If the starting rotation's good, they're going to be in a good position where they can add if they need to. So the question is, are we in such dire straits for this year? Long term, they are, because these guys are 1 year, 2 of them are 1 year deals. Long term, they're going to have to do something. Are we in such a dire position right now where we need to take on that kind of risk? That's a decision for them to make. But I can guarantee you one thing: if they sign someone like Yamamoto and he's just a guy with a 4 ERA, 500 record, people are like, "What a dumb signing! How could they have done that?" You have to understand that there's risk involved with it.
But at the beginning of free agency, you were the one saying on the air, I want Yamamoto. People were talking about Blake Snell, other options, Aaron Nola. I want Yamamoto. What's changed between now and then?
Well, they did sign 3 guys that I think are going to be okay. Are going to be okay. I still think they need it, but I look, if it's up to me, it's not my money. Sign them today. Sign them today.
Right.
It's not my money. But I understand now they have pieces in the rotation that they like. I don't think they're going to have enough pitching. I've said it before, but I'm trying to think from their position. They have to decide, are we in a better spot now where we have to take on that kind of risk?
All right. Well, I mean,
if it's up to me, I sign him.
Well,
but knowing that what if he comes and he's just a guy, kind of right, not a big guy. I think he's going to be
then you
great.
know what? He's still one of your 5 best pitchers if he's just a guy.
So that's worth it then if you're paying that kind of he's just a guy, but he's better than what you got?
No,
it didn't fix anything.
You can say that about anybody. You can say that about anybody. Well, what if?
No. You can't say. I'm trying to be fair about this.
Right.
This is a huge expenditure for a long period of time. You're not going to say that about Lance Lynn. If he's a bust,
I'm talking about Sonny Gray.
If he's a bust, Sonny Gray's 3 years.
Okay, but he's also going to be making $35 million in a couple of years.
3 years. What do you think Yamamoto? If you could get Yamamoto for 3 years for $35 million, I'd do it today. It's going to be longer. It's going to be more money.
And I'm not necessarily a huge fan of signing one player to $300 million, and who knows what percentage of your.
Well, what are you saying?
What are you saying?
I'm saying
I'm confused.
I'm trying to understand your logic, because at the beginning of free agency, you were all about Yamamoto, and now you seem very lukewarm.
No, I'm trying to tell you what I think the Cardinals may or may not do. If it's me, I would have signed them.
Okay.
I'm still there, but for the Cardinals, they have other guys. They brought in Sonny Gray. Mm-hmm. They have 2 other guys that they think will be good. I'll say it again. I don't think they have enough pitching. They need more pitching. But is it to the point of need the same way it was early on? My guess is that the Cardinals will say, no, if we can find something more reasonable, we'll do it. It's risk versus reward.
And I also think, though, that, listen, we know what the Cardinals usually do, and reasonable is the perfect word to describe it. But in my opinion, reasonable does not win you championships. Reasonable will get you back to 90 wins and the first-round exit. The reason I like Yamamoto, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm watching games in Japan, but from everything I read and hear, it is not like 20 years ago that you cannot basically translate these Asian league statistics to Major League Baseball. Like, these are very, very high-end leagues. You have all of the StatCast data on all these guys, the spin rates. You see these guys in the World Baseball Classic. I agree with you, Jim. I don't love the fact that he's 5'10", but I absolutely love the fact that he's 25. And that is a monster difference between all these other pitchers we talked about. And again, Sonny Gray's in his own bucket because of age and the years, but everybody else was about 31 years old. Nola, Snell, Montgomery, they're all about 31. You're going to get him for probably a 6 to 7 year deal with an AAV around $25 million. Yamamoto is basically 5 to 6 years younger than all those guys. I mean, that is huge.
That's why I was saying get that guy
to get
early
a guy
on.
like that at age 25. I mean, you don't see really talented pitchers hitting free agency at 25 almost ever. Jack Flaherty's a young guy hitting free agency. What is he, 27, 28? I mean, Jordan Hicks is a reliever, but think about it. In baseball, they usually manipulate that seventh year. You'd have to essentially start your career as an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old to hit free agency at age 25. It just doesn't happen.
Flaherty's coming off injuries and a
I'm saying just from age.
I understand, and Hicks has injuries. What I'm saying, this makes this guy all that more attractive. This guy is healthy and young and looks to be really, really great. There's still risk in laying out that kind of money for those amount of years, so you have to take that into consideration. But again, Cole, just so you understand, if it wasn't my money, which it isn't, and I was in charge, I'd sign him because I think he's going to be great.
There's also risk to being mediocre again, maybe missing the playoffs, really pissing off your fan base, which is it fair to say? I've been here since 2008. I think the fan base is more pissed now than they've ever been.
I agree.
There's also risk to, look, man, if you're already saying, we had John Mozeliak on a couple weeks ago, and he said, and when we asked him about, it was about attendance and the Bally's thing, but he said, it's real. It's real. Like, they realize if they don't produce, they're going to understand why fans don't come out, and they're not going to make as much money. And again, that's where you really can send your message. I never tell people don't go to games because games are fun. You know, the Cardinals and the Blues, they do great things for St. Louis. They do great things downtown. But the Cardinals, these teams really are not going to make a change till they feel it in their pocketbook. That's the only way they really will actually make change.
Which is why I was saying all year long, Cardinals fans are actively rooting for this team to be so bad that it embarrasses themselves to the point where they have no choice but to make some massive change.
You mean last year?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I think the Cardinals did the exact thing they should have done. Once you tank, you freaking tank. Don't halfway your ass to try to make the playoffs. No, the Cardinals did the perfect thing. They brought a bunch of AAA guys, and they tried to get the best draft pick. It didn't work out. Don't half-ass it. You can do that a little bit in the NHL, right? You can kind of – the Blues did that successfully 2 times. They traded Paul Stastny and Kevin Shattenkirk during the season because they weren't going to re-sign afterwards. You get some assets in return, and you still had a chance to make the playoffs. I believe 1 year they did, 1 year they didn't. The Cardinals, once they got to that point – they were not contenders. They did the right thing, which is just frickin' tank.
Or you could pick up guys at the trade deadline that you think is a sign that they're tanking, and those guys are really good. And
but that wasn't
well.
tanking. Come on. That was not tanking.
I thought that was them waving the white flag when they got Lester and Happ, and those guys were good.
But they added – at that point, though, they're 500. They still have a chance. They were still contenders.
I agree. I'm
Last
just saying
year,
sometimes guys are better than you think.
And by the way, what you just said, which I agree with, that's why I'm not going to crap on Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson and say it's not going to work. Because innings matter.
I will at risk of being wrong.
Proven guys matter. I still think they'll have to add at the deadline, by the way. I still think, dude, your whole rotation can't be 35. But by the way, the Cardinals know that. And I truly believe the Cardinals knew that last year. I think the Cardinals, they never thought their rotation would get through 162. What did they think? In my opinion, the exact same thing as the previous 2 years. They would not be so bad that they would have to trade off assets. They could be 500. They could get to game 100. They could add pitching. It didn't work out that way. But John Mozeliak's not dumb. He knows his whole rotation's 35 years old. I would think the Cardinals are going to have to add pitching again at the deadline. That's fine. That's fine, by the way.
That's why I think there's a chance that they might have a move left. They might, because they're not dumb. Even though everyone on the text line is smarter than Mo, and Cole too.
But that's just the text line. That's where, look, most of our listeners, and by the way, some people on the text line joke around. Most of our listeners are very reasonable people. They like to have fun. Some people on the text line and on Twitter are going to be more negative.
Of course, and we love the text line. I also
the
think
Audi exchange of
too,
Kirkwood text line.
Sometimes we call it Audi, but we should call it Audi.
Sometimes, too, like you have to understand that they had a bad season. I'm hoping they're better this year. I think they're a little short in the rotation. But going to Cardinals games, it's fun. So I don't think based on that season, people are not going to show up in droves. I agree with you. This season could be a tipping point. And I think the Cardinals realize that. If they're not good again, fans are going to be even more ticked than they were last year, and they were pretty angry.
I also think, though, that it wasn't just last year. Let's be real. And we know that 11 through 15 was magical. I mean, it was an amazing time to be in St. Louis. I mean, these unbelievable October runs. It was fantastic. And you can't sustain that. You can't do that forever. But there was a fall-off, obviously, during the end of Matheny. Schilt got it back a little bit. You got to the 2019 NLCS, and nobody's taking that away from the Cardinals. But I think you also realize, okay, you're in the Final Four. How close were you to really winning a World Series? You got swept by the Nationals. Were they really elite contenders? I think it's fair to say that they weren't. So I think if you go back 5 years now, it's not just last year. Don't you think it's fair to say you've been hearing from Cardinals fans? There's been this a little bit of apathy of all you try to do is win 90. All you try to do is win the weakest division in baseball, which is the Central, and get into the playoffs and see what happens. I mean, we've heard that a lot, and I think it's pretty fair, even before they missed out in the playoffs last year. Like, hey, Cardinals, you're doing just the whole narrative, which I think there's some truth to it. The whole narrative is all we care about is to get to 90, have a chance in the playoffs, and get 3 million fans for the bottom line. That's a pretty fair narrative. It is. I don't think that's some crazy narrative from like the fan base who are just idiotic. I mean, that's pretty fair. That's what the Cardinals try to do. Get to 90, roll the dice in the playoffs, get 3 million fans, rinse and repeat.
Well, it depends on this year because even if their numbers are I don't know. You cannot enter the playoffs this year with 3 of your 4 playoff starters being Michaelis, Lynn, and Steven Matz. So it depends on what they do at the deadline to bolster that starting rotation. And if they make some significant moves, if it looks like a playoff rotation, then I'll say, okay, they're trying to make some moves for the playoffs. But if they enter the playoffs, should they even make it that far, if they enter the playoffs with 3 of their 4 being who they already have behind Sonny Gray, that's not a World Series contending pitching rotation.
Well, we'll see how the season shakes out. But I understand. I don't think they have enough pitching. I'll say it again so I don't get attacked on the text line. But I do think...
Stop letting them in.
I do think we should take a break because I can't believe that the show flew. It's 9:15.
That means it's good, right?
It's good. It's good. But I want to hear about Cole's trip, and we've been pushing that. I don't want to run out of real estate.
Last question.
I have one more point.
Okay.
Which may last 27 minutes.
Apparently.
About the Cardinals.
That's how this goes.
Go ahead.
My question was going to be, what was it like here in 16, 17, 18? Because the Cardinals missed the playoffs 3 years in a row. Obviously, they weren't the worst team in the National League Central, which has a big factor in why the fans are so upset. But how did that level of upsetness or level of rage from the fans during those 3 years compare to now?
That's a great question.
I think there's more rage now.
That's a great question. I think if you really peel back that onion, though, that was a slow trickle that started in 13 when they made the World Series and Mike Matheny kept pitching to David Ortiz and he brought in Seth Maness in a high leverage spot. And then the next year with Michael Wacha versus Travis Ishikawa. So even when the Cardinals, a lot of people were basically criticizing Matheny that World Series year, that NLCS year. The next year they win 100 games, they lose to the Cubs, and again, you can't sustain World Series and NLCS every year. I don't think reasonable Cardinal fans think
that's a loser's attitude, Charlie.
But it really is.
But missing the playoffs 3 years in a row.
But if you look at it, it kind of is a 10-year decline from the absolute peak to this kind of mediocrity that, and you know what? It's not fair to call it mediocrity. It's not. Mediocrity to me is when you're 81 and 81 every year. Right. So I shouldn't say mediocrity.
Jeff Fisher.
No, because the Cardinals, the 88 to 90 wins and making the playoffs almost every year, we shouldn't take that for granted. It's not fair to call that mediocre. I should not have done that. But I do think, I'm accused of this, and I do move the goal line sometimes. We have moved.
That's
hold
quite
on.
an admission.
We have moved the goal line so far in the Cardinals. What were we saying last winter? We were saying 90 wins is not enough. We were saying 90 wins and a central title and a first-round exit is not enough. They went so far back in 2023, this is true, that we have now moved the goal line back that we're okay if they just get to 90 wins and a central title. That's what we were complaining about last year. They were so bad in 2023, we've totally forgotten that our goal was beyond that.
Right, but I do think that's how it works in sports, is that once you reach a certain level, now expectations change year over year, but it's the fault of the Cardinals for being that bad this past year. I don't think fans are wrong for their expectations being altered that far. I think it's the fault of the Cardinals for being so bad that there is a level of, I don't want to say apathy because it's not apathy, but there will be apathy if they have a repeat performance of last year. The second half of the year is not going to be a whole lot of people in seats.
Wait, let me
I have a better question, though.
All right, but let me just say this. So I'm one that, well, they'll win 90 and they'll get bounced in the first round. No one knows if they're going to. I mean, if you're in the playoffs, anyone can win. We see it year and year, year after year. But I think the thing that made last year so painful for Cardinal fans, outside that they were not good, I mean, they weren't even close to good, was that we saw stuff that Cardinal fans aren't used to seeing, like bad defense, bad base running. That bothers Cardinal fans. I think that made a bad situation even worse. It wasn't like a star player got hurt and they just didn't have enough. We saw bad baseball. And I think that bothers fans, and I think that stays with them.
I agree, and that's what I was getting to because Cole's initial question was about 16, 17, 18, and I went back in time. But the sloppy baseball under Matheny, I think, in the end is what really got him fired. Not just bullpen management and whatnot, but the defense was sloppy. The whole George Kissel Cardinal way was gone, base running. And give him credit. I know Schilt at the end, but Schilt cleaned all that up. Schilt got back to really sound. I mean, the defense, 5 Gold Glovers, whatever it was. The defense was crisp. The baseball was just tight.
And
extra bases.
This is where I think Cardinal fans are great.
Yes.
Because I think that stuff means more to Cardinal fans than in a lot of other cities. And that's not just kissing up to Cardinal fans.
No, it's a baseball
true.
city.
It's true. And we saw none of that last year. And I think that's what made the thing compound on itself and be even worse than going through a season, again, where this guy was hurt, that guy, we'll get him next year. They saw a brand of baseball they're just not used to seeing.
So let me ask this question. You kind of asked it, and I would love to hear the text line and you guys, your thoughts on this. So what happens if in 2024 the Cardinals get right back to where they were in 21-22, which is pick your number, 89 to 91 wins. They win the Central, and we can probably get into this. The Brewers aren't even trying anymore. This is what's pathetic about baseball, and I'm stumbling into another opinion. It's freaking late December, and you can say the Cardinals have one team to compete with, which is the Cubs. That's disgusting, by the way.
Yeah.
And seriously, the Brewers, and they're going to probably trade Corbin Burns. It's a joke that you're already going to be competing with one team in your division. But my question is, let's say Cardinals win 90 games. They win the Central, they beat the Cubs, they get to the playoffs. Let's say they get bounced in that wild card round. What do the fans think about that?
Not happy, but context matters because it depends how they get bounced, how the season goes. For example,
how about the Phillies?
Hear me
get shoved by Nolan Wheeler.
Hear me out. If Gorman's healthy and he's at second base and hits 36 bombs, Wynn hits 290 and steals 50 bases, Walker hits 30 homers, they're a good team and they get bounced. Okay, let's say the starting pitch. To me, it's like, do we have something as the Cardinals, as our team, can fix quickly and address quickly? Or like this year, you look at it, you go, the boat's leaking in like 7 places. To me, that would make it different. If there were, this cost us and we can fix it, I think that would take some of the sting out. Yes, fans are going to be ticked off, but I think the context on how the season went.
So how about this?
They'd still be pissed off because you specified wild card round, implying that the other 2 division winners are better than them too. So
okay.
Braves, Dodgers.
That's true, and I just threw that out there. But I think here's where Cardinal fans would really be pissed,
Or Phillies.
even with that outcome. because most people, isn't it fair to say, they still don't think the rotation is elite or even good enough to win a playoff series. Of course, you can get in there and anything can happen. If the Cardinals go to the playoffs in this scenario we talked about, and their starting pitching gets beaten around, and they face a couple of aces, it's going to be very easy for fans and media and everybody to say, we've been frickin' telling you this for two-plus years, that you cannot win playoff series with the rotation you're rolling out there.
Like you said, though, and again, context. If so many other things are going well and the rotation has been the biggest problem, they will get something at the trade deadline to fix that up. They're not dummies.
Okay, but they may get Quintana and Montgomery. They may get the equivalent, the 2024 equivalent of Quintana and Montgomery, which, by the way,
Your number one and your number 3.
were great additions.
Yeah.
And it still didn't matter because you went up against frickin' aces in Nolan Wheeler.
I think that fans would be upset. And here's
They'll be upset if they don't win it all. They're going to. I'll give you
here's
that.
Here's what it comes down to.
But hold on,
Here's what
come
it comes down to. I think it's next offseason because I feel like Cardinals fans felt duped by what happened this offseason. They addressed the pitching. They got 3 pitchers, but 2 of them were 36-year-olds who not a lot of people were tremendously excited about. But they're on 1-year contracts, so those contracts are coming off the books and can be replaced again next year with a more expensive contract for a better player. And you think maybe a McGreevy or Graceffo could move up to replace one of those empty spots. So I think next offseason, we may just be doing this all over again, talking about the pitching and, a lot of money coming off the books, and now you can who's it going to be? I don't even know who the free agents are going to be available next year.
Burns.
But, yeah, could you poach Corbin Burns out of your division? And
Well, I'm saying, no, he'll be a free agent next year.
Right. Because the Brewers wanted to save $740,000 in arbitration and ruin their relationship with them.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes. Although, but see, you said something I disagree with, and that never happens on the show. So you think if the Cardinals made the playoffs, let's say they win a first-round series, Pickett, whoever, they get to, I guess the wild card is the difference. I think if the Cardinals, let's say, got to the NLCS and they played a really competitive series against the Braves or the Dodgers and lost, I think most Cardinal fans would be like, hey, okay, that's improvement.
Yes, but fans are going to be ticked if they don't win it all, if they get bounced in the wild card. Yes, there'll be more angst if it's just a wild card. But my question to you is, so I'll stipulate that. So you always point out to me, and I'm not saying this as a knock or a shot.
You can.
That, no, it isn't, though, that, I'm just looking at the text line or someone on social media. I'm just curious, Cole's worldview of what Cardinal fans want, do you think his is tainted because it's almost exclusively off social media?
Or is it tainted because I just got here and only have 2 years of a sample size to work with?
Well, I don't think Cole's is strictly off social media. I think he got here in a horrible year for the Cardinals. So Cardinal fans are more ticked off than they've ever been. I also think Cole is a contrarian by nature, and I think he would always be. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'll always probably challenge and critique more than the average person. Is that fair to say? Even if things are good, bad, or in between?
No, yes, but I wouldn't even say necessarily about the Cardinals. I've never once been a fire Mo guy. And that's something that everybody around here seems to be singing in unison, and I've never been that guy.
I wouldn't say
You did want to shoot Waino, though.
You did want to shoot Waino. But that was also for humor.
I just wanted to blindfold him. Hey, I
don't think being a contrarian is a bad thing.
No, I don't either.
I don't think it's being a contrarian is a bad thing. It adds spice to the show. It's not a critique. But I do think you tend to think, well, this is what Cardinal fans want. Maybe you do have a handle on it. But I was just wondering because Charlie says, well, that's a text line.
Because I think, here's why. Because I think most sports fans are emotional and are all over the place. And this Jordan Kyrou situation is the greatest example of that. Where
and
he's
you're not, by the way.
He's public enemy number one.
He's not.
2 days later, everyone's cheering for him, going crazy. I feel like people don't just take a step back and view the thing from a 10,000-foot view and kind of and this is the data analyst.
That's what I was going to get to.
Sample size.
See, this is what I was trying to help you out. It's
Thank
better.
you.
It's better if I say it instead of you. I was about ready to say that, which is why I was trying to interrupt you. I don't know Cole that well. I've known him for a couple of years. Cole came in and did the show one day. We didn't know who he was, and he sat down and started co-hosting with Cam and I about 2 summers ago. It was great.
I was the pre-Daddy Padre.
And I love Cole, but I probably do this too much. I'm too psychological. I look at things too much from a historical perspective, which is why you asked me about Matheny. I had to go back 5 years prior. But that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
That's literally how my brain works. I think, and I was a history major, and I think everything happens. There's a domino effect to everything, 5 years, 10 years, blah, blah. I think Cole, from what I know, the data analytics of Cole is a raw data guy. I think he has fun with the text line. He has fun with Twitter. He jokes around with memes. But at the end of the day, Cole at its core is a mathematical, show me the numbers guy.
Yeah, and I
really do.
And I don't think the Cardinals are a terrible
really do.
organization
Here's why I
because they've had
disagree.
one terrible year. I do think the Cardinals are going to get back to, I think, a winning record. I just still think it would probably lead to the same ceiling that they've been hitting, which is if you win a playoff series, it's only going to be one series, if that.
Here's where I disagree. And I'm not saying that that's not part of Cole, but I do think there's an emotional side because really the things that ticked him off.
Because of the shirt I'm wearing right now?
Well, that's hilarious that you wear it, but good for you.
It's a pirate shirt, folks.
Thank you.
For those that can't see it,
We're not on YouTube.
On our YouTube feed. It's the things that tick you off the most was Waino singing and the cheeseburger phone, which shows me, and I don't care.
It's just cutesy stuff that bugs me.
But that bug, so that tells me
It's Brendan
not
Ryan's
just pure
bobblehead
data.
night.
Hold on.
There's
It's-
other stuff
no,
too.
it's-
Hold on.
Look how mad
No.
he's
It's the Cardinals are obsessed with strippers, mystique, and aura. Okay, it's Brendan Ryan bobblehead night. It's self-obsession. It's Memphis Mafia. It's Rally Squirrel, Burger Phone. Just all these little cutesy nicknames to
People
everything.
love that stuff. That's
No.
marketing.
No.
That's
That's
marketing.
a loser attitude.
No, hold on.
Look, you root for the Pirates. They'd have bobblehead nights for great players,
no,
but
they-
they haven't had a good one since Stargell.
They got McCutchen back.
McCutchen's back, and he just signed again. And he was
He's 47.
But he's actually one of the 9 best players, so it actually is significant that he came back. And don't get me wrong, you think I just do this about St. Louis? Pittsburgh's doing this too because they're all begging for Ben Roethlisberger to be the Steelers' offensive coordinator when he has 0 coaching experience just because he was a good quarterback. That is a stupid idea. Get somebody who actually has coaching experience in that realm. So it's not just a St. Louis thing, but the self-obsession, the cutesy nicknames, everything.
Hold on.
That's not data driven.
Not everything can be
That is not
nostalgia.
data driven.
No, it is.
He hates the
It
Memphis
is.
Mafia.
Cat.
I don't even know who's in it.
Hold on.
Alan Craig?
Hold on, because I was agreeing with you until that last part, and here's why. We like to have fun. We joke around. I like to think I'm a pretty fair person.
Yes, you tell us that all the time.
No, I like to think
I agree that
though.
you are.
But I like to think that I'm
I think you
pretty
are too, dude.
fair.
Thank you.
And I don't like to disrespect people, right? We can all critique Mo and Waino and Gersh and whoever and DeWitt. I try not to disrespect. Every once in a while, we probably tell a joke. I'm sure I've told a joke that went over the line. It happens. The cutesy Cardinal stuff is fine. All of the
When you win.
salsa, grinder, pepper grinder. It's all fine when you win 90 games. By the way, Adam Wainwright, I've said this all year. We probably talked more about Adam Wainwright this year than any human being on the face of this planet. Adam Wainwright was a legend. He is a top 5 human on this planet. It was the most awkward thing I've ever seen this year, having to watch that. Yes, with the losing, with the burger phone, with the concert, with the chase for a 200 win mark despite giving up 8 runs every outing. I'm sorry. That was not just about cutesy. That was the most awkward thing I've ever watched, and I love Adam Wainwright. I was here for almost his entire career. I love that dude. You can't act like that was not ridiculously awkward. It was.
I did.
It just was.
First of all, I think Waino, I love the fact that he loves music and he has an album coming out. I thought the awkward point was, or the awkward part of it, was he set up this concert. Back, I had to say it wasn't something that just happened organically when they were in the middle of when they were losing terribly. I get that, but my point was, he gets so emotional about that does not come from a data analytics place. So again,
Because
I'm not saying that's
but it's
not part of
logical,
it.
but it's logical.
It's not a knock.
It is logical,
It's
though.
not a knock. You're not pure data-driven guy. There's emotion, and it should be.
My emotion is the reaction to the motion of the fan
Don't
base, is
act,
what I'm
don't act
saying.
like you're Spock and you have no emotion. You do, and that scopes how you see things.
But hold on. Listen, by the way, everybody in the show, just so everybody knows, everybody loves each other on the show. We all take it. We all argue.
You don't
it's
have
fun.
to say it. Everyone
No,
knows.
but by the way, don't you want to tune into a show and have people arguing and debating? Do you want people to agree? I like when people argue. Listen, when Cole had his take about youth sports, no one was on his side. No one was on his side.
Literally not one person.
Okay? I agree with Cole on Waino. Now maybe he doesn't have the context that we have to see all the pepper grinders and the salsa and the rally squirrel and all the winning.
Matt Carpenter, I know who that is.
And Matt Carpenter salsa and all that stuff. But I'm sorry, man. You can't bust out the burger phone when you're 15 below. Okay. You can't bust out the concerts when you're tanking. I agree with Cole. I don't think that's emotional. I think that's very logical. We're kind of like, why are we doing the cutesy stuff?
That's the point, okay? I think the goalposts were moved a little bit. I'm not disputing that you don't have a right to make fun of that stuff. I'm saying you get so emotional about it shows that you're not. And that was what we were discussing. Am I right? That whether or not you're a pure data guy.
Well,
there's other parts of it, which is fine. We're all human beings. Spock wouldn't get mad about a burger phone. You get furious about it, and that's your right, and I get it.
I guess.
So why? So, but
because
that's not based on.
Because I think it's lazy. I think,
right, but he.
I think
you just said he's a data.
I think it's look.
No, but you're saying he's a data guy.
He is.
That's all.
But the data is the Cardinals standings.
I think it's lazy to just focus so much on nostalgia, so it is in response to the emotion of the fans. I think it's lazy to just sit around and talk about all the former Cardinals that we could possibly get in free agency. What's Joe Kelly up to? What's Jordan Hicks up to? Is Lance Lynn lying around? What's going on? I think it's lazy to just
assume. That's a shot at me because I like all those guys.
That was 100%. I was deliberately talking about you. I think it's lazy to just sit around talking about how Yadier Molina is the manager in waiting because he has no coaching experience. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, despite the fact that he does
internationally. He has some.
Okay, he's got a month of coaching experience in the Puerto Rican World Baseball Classic. It's in reaction to the emotion of the fans. I'm not just trying to stick everybody. When I first got,
I didn't say you were. I'm saying that's emotion.
But hold
that's
on, can I say something?
Yeah,
because. Again, I agree with half of what you're saying. First of all, some of these former Cardinals do make sense. Not all of them. And, of course, why? But why? Hold on a second.
Joe Kelly made sense.
I disagree with that, but it's fine if he did.
My point is that no other names are being brought up because it's laziness and no one knows who those other guys are.
Yes, because we know.
My point is it's lazy.
Okay, I understand that. Yes, if you said who are the starters and the relievers out there, we would know the former Cardinals first.
Michael Wacha.
Before we know like Will Smith. I 100% agree with you on that. Okay. And you know what? It is lazy. We're kind of a lazy show.
If we admit it, then we're good.
Hold on.
If we admit it.
I will admit that, yes, we all know the former Cardinals better. 1,000%, I'll just speak for myself. Do I know every reliever that is the same as Jordan Hicks that we should be interested in that's not Jordan Hicks? I don't. I look at some lists here and there, but I agree with you. I have not done my homework. Here's where I totally disagree with you.
Okay.
Nostalgia is great. It's part of the beauty of the Cardinals. The Cardinals,
of course it is.
The Cardinals are the second most, prestigious organization up there in the history of baseball behind the Yankees.
Yeah.
Because of the championships and because of the best fans in baseball and the Red Jackets and the passing of the torch from Stan Musial to Bob Gibson to Lou Brock, and then these people unfortunately pass away, and then the next Red Jackets. The nostalgia is awesome. The Clydesdales are awesome. It doesn't play well when you lose. The nostalgia is great, dude. You just saw a horrible season.
Okay,
the reason St. Louis is I'm not just pandering when I say this. St. Louis is the best baseball town in America because of all those nostalgic things I just mentioned. It just doesn't play well when you're having a really bad season.
I agree with everything you just said, except for the fact that my point is when it comes to roster management and decision-making like that actually affects future wins and losses, I don't think that you should focus on nostalgia when it comes to the future.
How about this, though? Here's a legitimate point I think that's fair to say. We joked about this. I joked about this, and it's not that far off, that the only people who want to come here are 35-year-old dudes that live close by or used to play here.
You were proven right this year.
But look, you have to want to come here. A former Cardinal who enjoyed it here and played well is going to be more likely to come back than a dude who was playing in San Diego or Miami.
But we just talked earlier about Yamamoto. You might as well try.
Listen, man, all I'm saying is it is a two-way street. The Cardinals did try to get David Price. Maybe it wouldn't have worked out. They did try to re-sign Jason
They thought
Hayward.
they had Price.
The guys have to want to come here. If the only dudes that want to come here, I don't care what the reason is. If your wife went to high school here, you use that. If Lance Lynn wants to come back, that's a good thing. If Kyle Gibson wants to come here, that's a good thing. Sonny Gray wants to be a Cardinal. He lives in Nashville. He can drive. That's a good thing. You need to take every reason somebody wants to come to the middle of America in St. Louis, which is not a big market. We do have issues. We all know that. Any reason any baseball player wants to come here and sign a contract, you use that to your advantage.
Okay, I want to get back to what you were saying about lazy, too. It's not just their former Cardinals. I see these guys in person pitch against the Cardinals, and I talk to them, like a guy like Wacha. And then I look and I see free agents available who is out there, Walker's numbers look like a guy, you get him for 2 years, not a lot of those guys, a guy who you know likes St. Louis. I thought that would be a guy who would be a good fit for the Cardinals. I kind of prefer if you got Walker and a Lance Lynn or a Gibson, that type of move. Joe Kelly, I've seen him in the postseason being really, really good. And I knew he wanted to come here. So that's why those guys are in the mix. I talked to him, would you come here? Yeah. A lot of guys wouldn't.
But my issue is that no other names were brought up, and I just want us to admit it's because
we did.
We did bring up other names, and because I can think of guys, you look at what they did last year, awful last year. And those are the same guys, like with a Glasnow. Like a guy who's so injury prone. All right, you bring him in and he's hurt. Of course, we bring in the guy who's hurt all the time. If you suffer through a bad season, like some of these guys had last year, or a guy who's hurt a lot, and you're a fan of that team, it hurts you more than if you're in St. Louis, you go, oh, he'll be fine.
Which I also think is bad. I think it's inconsistent that if Tyler O'Neill were basically on a different team and got traded here, that everyone would be excited about him.
They would. I
Hey,
guarantee
when
they
he's
would.
healthy, he's good. Well,
Okay, but hold on. We had that exact same argument, and Nate and I were in agreement last year. Remember?
so it must be correct.
No, Cody Bellinger. There's a lot of upside. And by the way, change of scenery, that is a thing. That is a thing. You go to a new team, you get a fresh start, you have a new manager, you have a new relationship. Maybe something happened you don't like. A hitting coach, somebody unlocks your potential. That can absolutely happen.
Yeah.
Okay, here's
I was wrong about Bellinger, but it wasn't because I didn't think a change of scenery would help. I knew he was coming off an injury, and I saw his swing, and I didn't think he'd be able. I was wrong, but it wasn't based on anything except watching him swing and seeing a different guy than I had seen before. A swing like that, by the way,
Violent.
is not common, right? There's a lot of moving parts to it. And then he hurt his shoulder or whatever, and his swing was different. I didn't think he could get it back. He proved me wrong.
right. And, it did take him 2 years, though. That surgery was a big surgery, and 2 years he got better each year.
And
it
if
seems
you
like,
watched him, you're like, not the same guy.
Right, but he did improve into now it looks like he's kind of back. But I agree with your point, Cole. We don't like our spare injured parts, but we like other teams.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that.
Because you don't
That
have
was
to-
my point.
Yeah, but here's
I agree because
here's a
you don't
good
have to deal with
example,
the
I think.
injury, so you don't have to see it.
Here's a good example of what we were talking about. And this is why, of course, we joke around about the old Cardinals that we like, and some of it's fun because they do fun interviews with Jim. That's part of it. People have to want to come here. What happened when you saw and again, I can react to Twitter here. What was the Twitter reaction when this Matsui reliever signed and you saw the money? What was the reaction? Did you see what the money was on that guy?
No, but for
4 years.
a reliever, it was pretty expensive, right?
No, I mean, I
No?
thought it was pretty reasonable.
Oh.
Wasn't it 4 years, $21 million?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
so think about this.
Never mind.
This dude visited Busch Stadium, right?
Yep.
This dude came to Busch Stadium, so clearly the Cardinals are down to one of his final teams if he's going to visit. He chose the Padres. Why? I don't know. Maybe he likes the beach. How about this? By the way, he's a closer.
Asian population.
He's a closer.
Looks like lights out to me.
Okay, but also,
I don't know.
But also, what if he wants to be a closer?
Yeah.
Okay, the Cardinals, I know Ryan Helsley can't pitch every day, but isn't it fair to say that the Cardinals closer is Ryan Helsley?
Yes.
So this guy,
say so.
by the way, I have no idea, and maybe we'll find out exactly why he signed with the Padres. Maybe he likes the beach. Maybe he does like the Asian population in California. I don't know. Maybe he wants to be a closer where he gets the ball in the ninth every night. And the Cardinals said, well, we want more of kind of like you're a high leverage reliever that's going to get some save opportunities along with Ryan Helsley. And maybe he didn't like that role. All I'm saying is, for whatever reason, that man did not want to come to St. Louis. I got to think the Cardinals offered similar money. I could be wrong.
I have a
But
feeling. I have a
or
feeling
more.
it's exactly what you said.
You know what I'm saying?
He wants to be the guy, and to have a guy. And we could argue about Helsley too. One of the things you have to figure out, you tell Helsley, look, we want what you want. You want to make a lot of money. You do that by getting a lot of saves, because relievers don't make a ton of money, but guys that get a lot of saves can. So help us get you there. How do we do that? We need you to pitch back-to-back nights. We won't use you for 2 innings, okay? And I'd be fine with that. Helsley, we need you to close games out. Let's work out something that's agreeable to everyone and get on the same page. Because last year with Helsley, they weren't.
Yeah.
Sharon wants you to redact your statement, Charlie. She wants you to separate the majestic Clydesdales from the ridiculous burger phone.
Well, I did not say the burger phone was nostalgia.
Right, I said burger phone, and she was mad at me for associating the burger phone with the rally squirrel, by the way.
But that's all.
So I was
again,
at fault too,
dude,
but I kind of hate
listen,
that.
man.
But that's
Rally Squirrel was cute. Torty Craig, that's fine. I'm not a hater on that stuff.
Torty Craig.
Listen, man, when you're winning 90 games and you're in the World Series, it's all fine. It's just not. It's not fun and cute when you're really bad. That's all I'm saying.
And for you, I mean, you're not from here.
Correct.
I wasn't born in St. Louis either.
You've been here for 20 years, though.
I think, and my kid was born here, so I consider myself a St. Louisan. But I'll say this: if you had been a Cardinal fan and gone through that, I think you would view the rally squirrel different. Now, look, you are a bit of a contrarian, which isn't a bad thing, but I still think you would see it differently. That is part of history. I'm not saying it's the best part. It's not cutesy, but that was sort of part of the storyline that got you from A to B to World Series. And fans love that stuff.
Right, but you also can't get so high on your own supply to where you're so self-obsessed and on your own nostalgia that it affects your future wins and losses.
Wait, so what you're saying is Mo is like, hey, Memphis Mafia, let's not go get Yamamoto?
No,
that's kind of what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying that he's calling Alan Craig right now instead of
Seems like
Yoshinobu.
Seems like you are. Fans get into it.
And I'm talking about the fans, too, not just the Cardinals themselves.
How about this? What if entering the offseason, John Mozeliak, what if the number one item was he wanted to sign Aaron Nola specifically? Seriously. But Aaron Nola said, no, I want to stay with the Phillies. He got a deal. Like, things like that happen where that changes the whole trajectory.
And I'm sure that he did.
Because didn't it feel like Aaron Nola was the type of guy that could be a Cardinal, right?
Yeah, but Sonny Gray felt more like a...
I agree with that, but
more.
but you could have had both in theory. All I'm saying is Blake Snell never really felt like a Cardinal in the same way that Aaron Nola did. Jordan Montgomery only feels like a Cardinal because he was a Cardinal. He just kind of looks like a 30-year-old dude, like I'm a Cardinal, right? There are guys that I feel... did anybody think Ohtani was coming here? Did anybody really think they had a great shot? All these Asian pitchers, by the way, they almost always go to the coast. John Mozeliak said that at his press conference. How many of these dudes come to St. Louis, Missouri? Where are they all signing?
Kim. No,
okay, but he was a...
I named one example. I know.
You're talking about 1 year, 2 year
I
deals
get your
for $5
point.
million.
Hiroki Kuroda, Masahiro Tanaka, so on and so forth.
They all go to New York. They all go to L.A. They all go to
did
San
get the final
Francisco.
boss, too.
Right, but we're talking about 1 year deals for like $7-8 million, 2 year deals for kind of some of these lesser guys.
Who's the final boss?
From Asia.
Sung Young.
I forgot his name. Oh.
Creamer Sung Young guy?
Yeah.
Hung
You don't know?
Sung.
He was good.
What was it?
He was-
Sunwano. Sunwano, yeah.
He had two of the greatest nicknames. He was the final boss and the Stone Buddha.
Yes.
And he didn't speak a word of English publicly, and he had his translator, who was Eugene, who everybody loved, and he was really good for I think he was a 2-year deal, right?
Sounds right.
And I think KK was a 2-year deal, right?
And I thought wasn't he good as a swing
good.
guy?
I think he kind of got
He's okay.
tired out. Yeah, he was okay.